Chapter 16. At dawn on Sunday morning, two deputies knocked on the door of a small brick house in a rural part of Stratton County, near a community called Tuftsburg. The owner finally came to the door and demanded to know what was going on. When asked his name, he replied, Larry Sampson. Then you're under arrest, one deputy said as the other unhitched a set of handcuffs from his belt. For what? Sampson demanded. Assault. Step outside. You're going with us. Samson argued for a few minutes, but soon backed down and surrendered, griping the whole entire time. The deputies suggested he shut up as they shoved him into the rear of the squad car. At that same moment, three other men were being arrested at various points around the county. Shorty, as he was later known to the boys, was actually Lester Green, the supervisor of the strategic surveys crew. The older guy was Willis Keith. The fourth guy, the one who tripped Woody, was Gino Gordon. All four were taken to the Stratton County Jail, where they were processed, fingerprinted, photographed, and charged with assault and trespassing. After a couple hours of phone calls and paperwork, they were released on bond and given dates to appear in court. Once they were in custody, a police officer, Captain Malloy, drove to the vet clinic to meet with the Boones. Captain Malloy had been around for a while and was well known and respected, especially by the older lawyers in town. He had been monitoring the situation that began on the Quinn farm Friday afternoon and involved a badly wounded dog now fighting for his life. Captain Malloy was also a member of the church where Hardy's father was the minister and thus knew the Quinn family well. Theo's father always has said life in a small town can be irritating because everyone knows your business. But at the same time, it can be easier and safer because you know the right people. Captain Malloy was one of the good guys. He arrived at Dr. Cole's clinic and found Miss Boone in the reception area, a quilt over her legs, reading the Sunday newspapers. She explained that he had been there about an hour. That Theo and his uncle Ike were back there in the exam room, where they spent the second night in a row, and that Dr. Cole was expected any moment. There was no change in Judge's condition. Captain Malloy and Miss Boone drank coffee for a few minutes as he told her of the arrests. Halfway through the story, Theo and Ike appeared in the reception area. Theo, who hadn't bathed since Friday morning, looked as though he'd been sleeping on the floor, which he had. And Ike, well, Ike was always looked crumpled and wrinkled with his long, straggly gray hair pulled into a ponytail. After introductions, Captain Malloy asked, How's the dog? Theo replied, Hanging in there. A slight heartbeat, but not much else. Still unconscious. Sorry to hear that, Captain Malloy said as he reached for a file. Let me show you something. He removed four large colorful photos, each of a different face, and laid them on the coffee table covered with magazines. Look at these guys, Theo. Ever seen them before? Theo leaned down and within seconds said, That's them, all four of them. He pointed to Lester, Shorty, Green, and said, He's the guy who grabbed my phone and knocked me down. He pointed to Larry Sampson and said, This is the thug who kept hitting Judge with a stick. He pointed to Willis Keith and said, He's the older guy, the boss. And about Gino Gordon, he said, This is the guy who tripped Woody and was cussing at us so bad. Captain Malloy smiled and said, Thought so. At this moment, these guys are downtown under arrest and getting booked. They'll probably post a bond this morning and get out. Do you understand all this, Theo? Theo certainly did. He nodded and said, Yes, sir. I picked up the photo of Larry Sampson and said, This is the bad boy who tried to kill Judge? That's him, Theo said, no doubt. So when does this jerk face a judge? Not sure, Captain Malloy said. He looks guilty, Ike said, spitting contempt. He is guilty, Theo said. There are witnesses. Where do these guys live? Miss Boone asked. Around here. They work for a survey company that was hired by the state to do some early work on the bypass. It appears as though they were a bit too eager and entered some private land without permission. They're going to serve time in jail, Ike said as if he were the judge. Mark my word, these clowns are serving time. Plus, we'll sue them for damages. Ike looked as though he was ready for a fist fight. Mr. Boone walked through the front door with a dozen donuts and another stack of Sunday newspapers. Theo was already always amazed at the volume of newsprint consumed by his parents on a typical Sunday. Often there were four thick newspapers scattered from the kitchen table to the den and even in the back of the porch. Good weather. One of Theo's household chores was to organize a recycling program. In one corner of the garage, he kept four large plastic bins, one each for glass, plastic, aluminum, and paper. The paper bin was always full, always overflowing with stacks of old newspapers. On several occasions, he had asked his parents why they simply didn't read the news online. They own laptops and use them for business and personal emails. Why not get the news online and save all that paper? Their answers were vague and unsatisfactory, at least to Theo. He stared at the stack of Sunday newspapers and thought, what a waste. Then he flashed back to the present and wondered why he, Theo Boone, a boy whose dog was practically dead, and a boy who just slept 2 nights in a row in a vet clinic, was worrying about recycling old newspapers. He grabbed a donut and downed it in 3 bites. Mr. Boone was saying hello and asking about Judge when Dr. Cole appeared from the rear. He was wearing a suit and tie, and said he was on the way to early church. The group passed around the photos of four freshly arrested men, and with frowns slightly condemned them. Dr. Cole said something like rough bunch. Theo had an idea. He looked at Captain Malloy and said, "Can I borrow that photo of Larry Sampson?" Captain Malloy handed it to him. The adults watched Theo as he disappeared into the rear of the clinic. The exam room was dark and deserted. Only Judge was there, still motionless on the table where he had been for so long. Theo turned on a light and hovered over his dog. "Hey, buddy," he said softly into his ear. "Got something for you." Theo held the photo of Larry Sampson close for Judge to see. "This is the outlaw who did this to you, Judge. His name is Larry, and right now Larry is sitting in jail. They're gonna bust him, Judge, and make him pay. Look at him, Judge. Big bad Larry. The guy with the stick who thought he was so tough, whipping a little dog, is now behind bars. We won, Judge, and we're not finished." Theo held the photo, but Judge did not look. Theo fought back tears. The photo was shaking. Theo closed his eyes and asked God to look down on this poor little dog who had never harmed anyone, who was the best friend in the world, who had been badly injured trying to protect Theo. Please, God. Minutes passed and Theo was ready to give up. There was a sound, sort of a weak grunt, as if Judge was trying to clear his throat. Theo opened his eyes, and at about the same time, Judge opened his. Not wide, just two narrow slits, but Theo could see the dark brown irises of Judge's eyes. "Judge, you're awake," he gushed and leaned over even lower, to that his nose was about 2 inches from his dog's. Judge opened his eyes wider. He seemed to look at the photo of Larry Sampson, to stare at it. Then he opened his mouth and licked his lips. Theo placed the photo on the table, then with both hands began rubbing his dog along Judge's back, talking nonstop. Dr. Cole walked in and said, "Well, well, I guess Judge said he's not ready to go." "Look at him," Theo said. "He's wide awake." "I see." Dr. Cole gently removed the tube and gently touched the swollen places. Judge was coming to life, whimpering and trying to wiggle around. The splint on his right front leg bothered him, and he couldn't figure out why it was there. When Dr. Cole touched it, Judge squealed and jerked away. "He'll need a painkiller." "I bet he's starving," Theo said, unable to contain his excitement. "No doubt, but let's get him some water first." Dr. Cole slowly lifted Judge and held him as he tried to stand on the table. Theo grabbed a small metal bowl, ran some water in it, and offered it to Judge, who slurped it down as if he'd never seen water before. As he drank, he made a mess, and while Dr. Cole was helping him stand, Theo stuck his head out the door and yelled, "Judge is awake." Within seconds, the exam room was packed with as four Boones, Dr. Cole, Captain Malloy, and two vet technicians gathered around to watch Judge attack the water. Dr. Cole finally released him, and there he was, Judge Boone, alive and standing alone on three good legs and one broken one. His head was swollen and shaved, and he looked as though he had been run over by a truck, but he was happy and grinning, and wondering why all those humans were crying. The judge was back. That's the end of chapter 16.